1918. The war in Europe is finally ending. And that same year, something else moves across the planet that no one declared war on, no one negotiated a treaty with, and almost no one wrote down. The best estimates say it killed between 50 and 100 million people worldwide. More than World War I, more than World War II, more than Korea and Vietnam combined. A third of the human race on Earth caught it. In the United States alone, 675,000 people died. More Americans than died in every battle of the 20th century put together. It moved fast, and it moved cruel. Some people who felt fine in the morning were dead by nightfall. Their skin would darken, starting at the fingertips, the lips, the ears, turning a deep blue-purple as their lungs filled and their blood stopped carrying oxygen. Doctors called it heliotrope cyanosis because they'd never seen it before and needed a name for it. Some bodies turned almost black before the undertaker arrived. Coffins ran out. Undertakers ran out of undertakers. So many of them died too. Cities dug trenches with steam shovels and buried people in rows because there was no other way to keep up. In some homes, the ones still standing dug the graves for the ones who'd just fallen. Here's the part that doesn't add up. A catastrophe that reached into almost every family in this country, and it barely exists in the record. Historians who've gone looking for it will tell you the same thing. It's strangely absent. Not in diaries, not in memoirs, barely in the newspapers, even at the time. One researcher spent years reading through thousands of period newspaper articles and could count on one hand the ones that told the story of a single person who died. Not the numbers, the person. Some of that silence has an explanation. The war was still the headline. People were exhausted, rationed, grieving soldiers already. And influenza, unlike a battlefield, didn't come with a flag to rally around or an enemy to name. There was no one to be angry at, no one to blame. Just a thing that came into your house and took someone, and then you were expected to get up the next morning and keep going, because everyone around you had lost someone too. In Philadelphia, city health officials had already been warned. Doctors were telling them the flu was spreading fast and a mass gathering would be dangerous. The city held a parade anyway. 200,000 people packed shoulder to shoulder down Broad Street to sell war bonds. Within 72 hours, every bed in every hospital in the city was full. Within a month, Philadelphia had lost more people to the flu than it would lose soldiers in the entire war. So this isn't only a story about a disease. It's a story about what a warning is worth when the people in charge decide morale matters more than the truth. That part of it should sound familiar. We've told that story on this show before, in other years, in other disasters. It never stops being true. But the deeper question here isn't why it happened. It's why almost nobody talked about it afterward. Why did the people who lived through the worst pandemic in modern history, who buried parents, spouses, children, neighbors, sometimes all in the same month, so often choose never to write it down, never to tell their grandchildren, never to let it become a story at all? I don't think it was forgetting exactly. I think some things are too big to carry as a story, so people set them down instead and just carried the weight silently for the rest of their lives. If you've lived through the last several years, some of this isn't as far away as it used to be. You know what it is to lose someone and have the world ask you to move on quickly, because everyone else is grieving too, and there isn't room to stop. 1918 was that, at a scale that's hard to hold in your head, with none of the medicine we have now, and none of the permission to talk about it that we've since fought for. I want to speak to the ones whose names never made it into any record, not because their families didn't love them, but because their families couldn't find the words, or couldn't afford to spend what little they had left on words when there was still a house to run and other children to feed. You are not a statistic in a footnote about 1918. You were someone's whole morning, and then you weren't there. We don't know most of your names. That's the plain truth of it. But we know you existed, and we know what was taken. And on this show, that's enough to earn you an episode. We salute you. All of you the record never got around to naming. The ones who died and the ones who survived you and never said a word about it, because saying it out loud was more than they could do. You should have been remembered. We're trying, even this late.
Morning breaking, kettle whistling, bread still on the stove. 6 should have been at the table, but there's only 5 we know. Nobody said it out loud yet, nobody wanted to be right. And her coat's still on the hook there, where she left it last night. Doctor came and left already, with a look we understood. He said to keep the windows open and do the best we could. So we did everything he told us, boiled the water and kept her warm. But there was nothing made a difference, nothing holding back that storm. Not a bullet, not a bomb blast, not a wound we could see, just a fever in the morning and an empty chair by 3. Nobody found the letters, 'cause nobody wrote it down. Almost like the writing made it just too real somehow. So folks just folded up their grief and hid it in a pot, where even while it ate them, it couldn't take their heart. They set another place at supper, kept the missing face in view, beside a chair that no one sits in, unspoken, loud and true. Weeks churned by and things were silent, like it wasn't in the past. But we still baked on Sunday mornings and said grace to break the fast. But we skipped the hard part over when we spoke about that year. And some things never did get spoken, they never made it past the tears. 50 years went by, nobody asked, and the young ones never knew, and the ones that did were passing, nearly all of them gone too. So there are names that we can't trace now, sometimes a chair to hold the place of a loved one we remember in a quiet, empty space. I'm sorry how the silence started, no words were ever found. It never was that you weren't loved, we were just too broke to write it down. Now somewhere there's a table where the count is always short, and a chair that's still there waiting longer than it should have, Lord. Please forgive us for our silence when your spirit comes around. It's not we didn't grieve you, we just never put it down.